When I get older, losing my hair next year or right now, will you still be sending me my benefits, Social Security, cake of some wine? 'Cause I've been paying all of my tax and I'm still alive. Will you still feed me? Will you support me when I'm 65? You'll be older too. And if we all get sick, Medicare for us.
Conversation. So this is Protect Social Security. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Vita. I am a volunteer with Indivisible, Sonoma County. You can see that tonight is being taped, but only the speakers are being taped. Nobody in the audience is going to be on the footage. You would have to have you sign releases. So there's flyers in every chair. There's information in the flyers on how to view the video when we finally put it up. So tonight we're having a non-partisan civil conversation about Social Security. We're going to learn a little bit about the past and current threats to it and what we can do to help protect it. And I say it's non-partisan because it doesn't matter who's in the White House, right? It doesn't matter what party we might be affiliated with. If we've been paying Social Security through our payroll taxes every day of our working lives, we are literally invested in Social Security, right? We're deeply interested in protecting it.
Hell yes.
My name is Riley Ahern. I am Congressman Jared Huffman's Sonoma County Field Rep, and I'm here on his behalf to read the statement. Thank you for including me in this important conversation on protecting Social Security and Medicare. I appreciate all the work you do to shine the light on critical issues and for bringing us together today to highlight how important these earned benefits are to our community. These earned benefits have been in place for 90 years. National polls show a significant majority of Americans support the Social Security program, up to 87%. And since Trump was elected, support for Medicaid is now almost as popular, showing public education still makes a difference and that our FAT campaign is working. Republicans in Congress have started rolling out the details of their budget reconciliation bill. While many have claimed they will not cut important social programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, their budgets simply can't pencil out without massive cuts to these important programs. And that means slashing Social Security and the federal programs that support healthcare. To be clear, thousands of people in our community are at risk of losing their hard-earned benefits and healthcare, including children, low-income adults, rural communities, people with disabilities, veterans, tribes, and so many more. Since Trump has taken office, my staff and I have been meeting with constituents, local and tribal governments, as well as impacted organizations across my district about how Trump's actions have and will impact them. We have heard the same concerns across the board, and that these cuts will be devastating for everyone, but will be particularly detrimental to low-income and rural communities. We should be fighting to protect people, lower costs, and make healthcare more affordable, not padding the pockets of the ultra-wealthy. And I want to thank you, because your advocacy is making a difference and helping us in that fight. My staff and I are here to help, to collect your stories, and to advocate on your behalf. And you can count on me to fight for you in Congress. Together with millions of our fellow Americans who are in this together, we can win.
65% is withheld from your paycheck, from your net pay, for Social Security and Medicare. Of that, 6.2% is for Social Security, 1.45% is for Medicare, and your employer then matches it. They have the same amount withheld. If you are self-employed, as I am, you pay 15.3% of your income. And now I want to recognize the gentleman in the front row who's on par with, or who's on the same page as Bernie Sanders and the rest of us. You'll notice that bullet point number 2 says from each paycheck, 7.65% is withheld from the first $176,100. What that means is high-income people do not pay a whole lot into Social Security. Low-income people pay 6.2% of every single paycheck. And to me, $176,000 still sounds like a lot, but if you're working in Silicon Valley, you may be making $1 million or $2 million a year. It's not uncommon to make $300,000 or $400,000. Those people are not paying Social Security on all of their money. So they have a higher proportion of take-home pay than you and I, who may work at more modest salaries. So I would agree with this man that that is the easiest way to solve the problem. If you're concerned about Social Security being underfunded, raising that benefit cap is the simplest way to solve it. So originally, it was 1% from employees and 1% from employers, and that was supposed to increase gradually, but we had some unhelpful people in government even then. Alf Landon was running for president, and his campaign manager said we had a needless $47 billion reserve. He said Social Security was underfunded. He insisted they give back some of the money. So, unimportant. Okay, why is Social Security so important? This is one of my favorite quotations by any politician. It was not specifically in relation, yes, to Social Security. But this is Paul Wellstone of Minnesota. He said, we all do better when we all do better.
Right.
What that means is, again, we're not talking about charity. We're talking about it's better for us when our friends and neighbors are not starving to death, right? It's better for our country. It's better for our community. It's better for our economy. We all do better when we all do better. Before Social Security, things could get fairly ugly. You could work all your life for a pension and then find your company went out of business and wasn't paying your pension. We didn't have ERISA, the 1974 Act that protects pensions, didn't come around until 1974. You may notice because I just said it that way. Before that, there were no legal restrictions on how a company had to protect their pension money. So during the Depression, a number of people had worked all their lives assuming they were going to be paid, and then they weren't. People who had worked very hard, who had tried to save money or take care of their families, still ended up literally starving during the Depression. I would imagine your grandparents may have told you about it, you may have read something about it. It was ugly beyond belief. And so that is why we needed Social Security. These were some of the things that happened before Social Security. Warning out was an old Boston tradition. If somebody came to town in the early days of this country, and knowing Boston, it was probably even before this was a country. If someone came to town and they were worried you couldn't support yourself, they would warn you to leave town.
Wow.
You would be forced to leave town so the local community wouldn't feel they had to take care of you.
Wow.
Well, I know, right? We also have this term vendu. You may recognize the root form of that, vend, which means to sell. Another thing that was done in this country in the early days before Social Security, if an old person could not take care of themselves, they could essentially be sold to a local family. They would be placed with that family. The family was responsible for feeding them, but they were expected to do work.
Wow.
So a little sort of vague slavery thing that was going on. And then we hear sometimes in the expression, oh, you're going to send me to the poorhouse. A poorhouse was an actual thing. It was kind of like an orphanage for old people and poor people who couldn't take care of themselves. All of those were horrible ways to live. So why we needed Social Security? It's because the poor are not the only ones who suffer. We are all degraded when our grandparents are hungry, when our neighbors are evicted. If we're a fancy lady riding down the street in a chauffeured car and we're looking out on poor starving people, that is a horrible way to live. So for all of us, we need to take care of people so everyone has a minimum basic income. Our economy suffers when people can't afford to buy things. So now, because I find the history so fascinating, I'm going to rush through some of the benefits and get back to history. But I thought we should be clear on what we're talking about. Social Security covers most private sector employees. Initially, that was all it covered. Most federal employees after 1984, most self-employed people, and members of the U.S. Armed Forces. Federal employees before 1984 were not included. Certain state and local employees still are not. If you work for state government, if you work for the University of California, I still have some clients who are not covered by Social Security. But they have pension plans of their own in many cases. And railroad employees, for some reason, the railroads always had good pension plans. So even today, if you work for the railroads, you may not be covered by Social Security. But our Social Security system was in part designed based on the railroad benefits. That was one of the real models for our current system. So who does it cover? Social Security is primarily retirement benefits. That's about 80 to 90% of the benefits paid out. But it's also a disability program, and there are also benefits for spouses, including ex-spouses and survivors. This is the approximate breakdown as of 2024. About 80% of the benefits are for retired people, about 11% are for disabled people, and 9% for survivors. You may have recently been warned that you should download a copy of your Social Security statement. If you haven't done that lately, I want to strongly encourage you to do that. You go to ssa.gov, Social Security Administration.gov. It's a very good site, it's very well written, and then you just look for my statement and download it. In the past, we used to get them in the mail. They used to come regularly. They changed their minds. For a while, George H.W. Bush said, well, I'll just mail them to old people. Then he said, well, I'll just mail them every 5 years. Now they're not mailed out at all anymore. So if you want one, you have to download it yourself. And I would encourage you to do that, regardless of your age. Few reasons. One is, I think we've all heard some rumors lately that some bad people might be messing with our data. So just in case something happens and some of your data disappears, I want you to have a paper copy at home, or at least a hard copy you save to your computer, so if necessary, you can recreate that. Another reason I want you to download it is it will be fascinating. You'll see the last 30 to 35 years, or maybe even longer, of all your taxable income every year. And if by any chance there's a mistake in that, it's going to take time to get it sorted out. Even if it's an honest mistake. I always told people, even my very young students, download it, take a look at it, make sure it all looks correct. Because bureaucracy is slow, and if anything is mistaken, you want to get it fixed before the time comes. The reason that's so important is those amounts that you earned every single year since you were a lifeguard in the 1970s, that's what determines the level of your benefit. Because your benefit is based on what you paid in. Oh my goodness, Diane tells me, I'm already 5 minutes from the end. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead here then, because I really want to tell you a little history. First of all, the reason that this got invented, as I mentioned, was essentially Social Security. Was essentially the Depression. Something needed to be done. People realized this country was in a desperate situation. Our economy was failing. Something had to be done. Germany had a functioning system, but between World War I and World War II, which was when the Depression was the worst, Germany was not very popular. So that actually slowed down the process. They said, Germany has a great system, we don't want to do anything Germany's doing. So that slowed it down. But these six people, are very important. Thomas Paine was one of the founding fathers of the United States. He wrote Common Sense. You probably studied him in school at some point. He is older than this country. But he wrote this amazing document, which you can find on ssa.gov. It's called Agrarian Justice. He essentially envisioned our Social Security system in the 1700s, a full 200 years before anybody did anything about it. Our system is uncannily similar to what he proposed. Notice the title, agrarian. He meant this is for farmers, which was essentially everyone at that point. And notice he uses the word justice. Does not use charity or handouts or anything else. He says it is justice because there are some people in this country who have no land. There are some people who have a lot of land. It's not fair to the people who don't have land. So he said if you don't have land, we're going to tax wealth. We're going to tax it through an inheritance tax. That hasn't really worked out so great. But he said we're going to give 15 pounds to every man and woman who turns 21. So that's a chance to get a good start in life. And after you're 50, you're going to get 10 pounds per year, which was actually a lot more. You can imagine it was a little more meaningful then than it is now. You only had to be 50 years old. Another amazing thing about it was he was gender neutral. That was not common then. And the Social Security Act originally was not gender neutral. But he said every man and woman over 50 should get 10 pounds per year. And I know, wow, right? It was so interesting. I also find some of his statements very interesting. He said this payment should be made to every person, rich or poor. It's best to make it so to prevent invidious distinctions. That also is part of the current Social Security system. We are not deciding, oh, you're poor, you need it, or you're poor, you don't deserve it. We're not making those distinctions. He said it's not a charity, it's a right. And he says the contrast of affluence and wretchedness continually meeting and offending the eye is like dead and living bodies chained together. Again, it is ugly to live in a society where some people are not okay. It's justice and not charity. The reason I have this guy up, he's a recent recipient of the Nobel Prize. But he basically has said, yeah, Thomas Paine got it right. So other programs that came along before, so Franklin Delano Roosevelt eventually got Social Security done. Even some of his best friends said FDR was lazy. So he did this because he had to do it. He couldn't not do it. And one of the reasons was there were alternative plans popping up. Huey Long, the demagogue from Louisiana, he had his own system that got very popular. He was assassinated before he got to be president. Wow. But he had his own system called the Share Our Wealth Society that was very popular. There was another guy named Dr. Francis Townsend, and he had this cockamamie scheme for a type of Social Security. I'll tell you the details another time. It was quite interesting. But basically, his plan was not really workable, but people were so desperate for something that they were joining Townsend clubs around the country. He had enormous influence. So because of that, essentially, FDR was forced into designing something. Frances Perkins was his Secretary of Labor. She was the first ever female cabinet member of any kind. She had a wonderful history, and she created our Social Security system. She and FDR discussed 3 possible ways of doing it. One was means-tested welfare. In other words, we give this just to people who need it. Another was the government selling you annuities, and the third was compulsory retirement insurance. They chose number 3, and here's why. They wanted a system we paid into it, specifically so we would fight for it. They wanted us to feel that we own it, as we do. This is a quotation from the biography of Frances Perkins. She says, FDR said it had been constructed in a way that no future politician would be able to tinker with it because it would be funded by workers' own contributions. This is a quotation from Roosevelt himself. He says, with those taxes in there, no damn politician can ever scrap my Social Security program. And now I'm going to jump ahead because I know I'm out of time, and I want to show you one more quote by Eisenhower. How about this? He was elected the first Republican president in a long time, and he said, should any political party attempt to abolish Social Security or unemployment insurance and labor laws, which were also Frances Perkins designed, you would not hear of that party again in our political history. He said there's a tiny splinter group that believes you can do these things, yada yada, and an occasional politician or businessman. Their number is negligible, and they are stupid. He's absolutely right. Thank you, Diane, for keeping me on track.
I can find those notes for, all right. So our second speaker is Charlie Estudio. He's a 39-year Social Security employee, now retired. Charlie's going to discuss some of the myths we may have heard about Social Security, myths that have been used in prior and current attacks on Social Security. You know, we as taxpayers and voters need to know what's what, so that we can help protect Social Security from being reduced or eliminated. Now remember, if you have questions, you have the little cards. Write your question, hold them up, and Angela or Kim will come around and pick them up. Again, we can't answer specific Social Security questions, only the topics that are covered here tonight. Please welcome Charlie Estudio.
Thank you, everybody. I started with Social Security in 1973, right before SSI was converted from the old state welfare and OAS, old age and disability system. Social Security is the most beloved social program that we've ever had. It still is extremely popular with people. I mean, people that receive benefits generally wish they could have more, and people generally believe they pay too much into it. But overall, you know, if it weren't there, we would be in really a terrible situation. I mean, it has lifted millions of people out of poverty, and I want to give you a few statistics. Right now, 69 million Americans receive Social Security benefits. 73 million receive both Social Security and SSI. The administration sees 41 million visitors each year. The 800 number answers 80 million calls per year. and we have 500 million interactions with the public each year. I started out as a claims representative. I retired as a claims representative, but in 1984 I was elected to a union position where I was second in charge of the region, California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. And then in 2000, and for my last 12 years, I was third in charge of 50 states, Caribbean islands, Pacific islands. And so I represented Social Security employees in various actions taken against them and negotiated contracts, and also lobbied against a lot of the things that administrations wanted to do. For example, in the 80s, Commissioner Dorcas Hardy had the brilliant idea of contracting out the 800 number to prisoners, incarcerated prisoners. And when you called up, the 800 number, you'd be talking to a prisoner who would give me your Social Security number, and you might, and all your personal information. They're in a cell somewhere, and then you might say, I want to change. My mother just died, and I want to discontinue her benefits. And the guy goes, oh yeah, okay. What's your direct deposit? Because they have the computer information, right in front of them, so they can redirect the checks to, Brother Guido or whoever they're affiliated with. So I was asked to speak on myths. Doge has come up with phenomenal lies and stories about things that they claim are happening. For example, that people 300 years old are receiving Social Security benefits. Why anybody would believe that is beyond me. What they did was they put these kids who have modern computer experience and put them and gave them access to the Social Security database. And this, a guy who is now the acting commissioner of Social Security, Dudek, he ended up granting access to the Social Security database without having authorization to do that. And when the acting commissioner, who was appointed by Trump, found out about it, she fired his ass. And so he was fired from the agency, and then the commissioner, acting Commissioner King, was so overwrought with pushed with pressure to let people have access to the system, these Doge kids, that she just resigned. And then Trump appointed this guy Dudek to be acting commissioner of Social Security. We have had more systems outages since Doge got their fingers in the computer system than we ever did before. The old computer system is based on the original computer system, and it's been patched together over the years, and most of the experienced computer people who have worked with this old mainframe computer have, a lot of them just quit in disgust. They've retired, resigned, and so we don't really know what's going to happen. They're going to try to convert this to an entirely new system. And the last time they used an entirely new computer system without properly trying it out was in 1974, when SSI was merged with the SSA database, and half of every couple that was on Social Security and the former state old age system got kicked off the system. I was there then, and people were coming in and going, I didn't get my check. And we go, oh, and we didn't have computers in those days. We had to run a punch card, and then it's like, well, you're N32. Well, what's N32? Nobody said anything about this. Anyway, we should be very afraid of what they're going to do with the computer system.
We are afraid.
There's a myth that Social Security is going to go bankrupt. There won't be there for people in the future. It'll always be there as long as we can get Congress to fully fund it. To raise the cap on wages to, 250,000, 300,000, whatever it takes, unlimited. It's not a Ponzi scheme. That's Elon. People should know better than to believe him. It's based on current and past contributions. A Ponzi scheme is an illegal scam. That there's a lot of fraud in SSA. That's another myth. The error rate in Social Security and the fraud rate is less than 1%. The Inspector General of Social Security did an audit of everything that happened between 2015 and 2022 and found out that the error rate was less than 1%. There's another myth, I guess. Social Security is too expensive for the government to continue operating. No, it would be too expensive not to have it. I mean, can you imagine the damage that would happen to our society if we didn't have Social Security there to give people money to live on? We've had, in the past, one of our union rep lobbyists went to Congress because they were, during the Bush administration, they were talking about privatizing Social Security. Yeah. And she looked up like Congress people in Ohio and Indiana and the Midwest who were pushing this thing. And she went, you know what? 2/3 of the people in your district are on Social Security. Do you know what would happen to your county or your jurisdiction if Social Security income was pulled? All your businesses would go out. You would have people starving in the streets. All that. So they kind of changed their tune. Yeah, Social Security is an entitlement. You are entitled to it. You've earned it. You paid into it. One of the threats to Social Security is failure to fully fund it. They've gutted a lot of Social Security so far. They went from 10 regions. The California region, our region here was California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii, and Pacific Islands, and they merged that with a third of the country, and now our regional office is in Dallas, Texas.
Oh my God.
And so they went to three regions out of 10. And they gutted all of the, so we had a division of EEO, Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity, where people would go if they believed they were discriminated against based on age, gender, sexual harassment, disability, whatever. And because of Trump's anti-DEI thing, he disbanded all of the regional offices that dealt with discrimination complaints. And he got rid of, I'm told it's like a ghost town in central office, and the regional offices, they fired and let people retire or give some early outs to a whole lot of people. We need to fully fund Social Security. People shouldn't have to wait 5 hours to get their business done. It used to be, it didn't used to be that bad. I talked to somebody today who said that she waited 45 minutes. No, she waited like 3 hours to get to to get seen by somebody in the Santa Rosa office, and then was told you have to make an appointment.
Oh my God.
And so that shouldn't happen. You should complain. You should complain to your congresspeople and let them know about that, because that's not the service you paid for. You paid in for. Trump got rid of the inspectors general. Inspector generals are in charge of finding, investigating, and dealing with waste, fraud, and abuse. And so DOJ is supposed to deal with waste, fraud, and abuse, not just give. I gotta get my 5-minute thing here. So there's no watchdog anymore within agencies to deal with fraudulent activity and waste and so on. They want to privatize Social Security. They want to do away with you paying in contributions. It goes to the trust fund, and they want to have you set up your own IRA and invest in the stock market. And we've seen many times how devastating the stock market can eat into your savings. You know, plus you'd be putting your trust in certain stockbrokers, and most of them are highly ethical, but some of them are unscrupulous, and they could be putting your money into investment portfolios that benefit them and not you. And then with all this money being in, I checked with an old roommate of mine who's an economist and a banker. I said, what would happen if we all put our money into the stock market instead of having, you know, the FICA wages going into Social Security? I said, and he confirmed what I believed. You'd have a big rise in the cost of stocks, but that would be a false bump. And then when people, you know, wanted to draw their benefits from it, it would very likely go way down. So when you want the money, it won't be there, but they'll take it from you, you know. Okay. A friend of mine was a public information officer in the Santa Rosa office back in the 80s under G.W. Bush, or 90s, I guess it was. And, or I guess it was 2000s, huh? What was that? Okay. George W. Bush. And she was ordered to place a press release in the Press Democrat saying, if you have questions from Social Security, if you have questions about Social Security, go to SSA.org. SSA.org is a Cato Institute, an anti-Social Security lobbying organization and think tank, and misdirecting people to a website where they were basically fed misinformation, and you know, this is all done to undermine confidence in Social Security. Okay. And then also lies about Social Security. Our Vice President, J.D. Vance, said on April 8th, 2025, you look at people who are 150 years old who are fraudulently collecting Social Security payments. You see our Social Security system, 40% of the people who are calling are actually committing fraud. That means 60% who need their Social Security checks are waiting in line. Well, that's complete baloney. You know, that again undermines confidence in the system. When you have your highest, you know, level executives, you know, basically spreading lies about the program and destroying confidence. Mismanagement, like I said, this guy Dudek was fired for exceeding his authority and was reappointed as the head. And I heard a video of a meeting with him, and Axios, I think, recorded it. And he said basically that I'm not going to protect Social Security. I'm going to do what the president and what Doge tells me to do. So he's just a willing handmaiden for the president and for Doge. And even higher up the food chain, the head of Office of Management and Budget, this is how they want to destroy Social Security from within. His name is Russell Vogt, V-O-U-G-T. In 2023, he said this in a speech: we want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. We want, when they wake up in the morning, we want them not to want to go to work. We want their funding to be shut down. We want to put them in trauma. So they want to create a demoralized Social Security and federal workforce so they can privatize it, really. They want to put it in the hands of their, you know, their billionaire corporate friends. I'm going to end with, I'm up. I was going to end with former Commissioner O'Malley. He's on the TV a lot lately, and a lot of talk shows and stuff. And he said this: he predicted the system collapse within 6 months. He said they want to wreck it to rob it. They're cratering out the agency. They've told lots of lies about Social Security. We need to stop the steal. They want to wreck it to raid it. And so, you know, pay attention when he's on MSNBC or...
Final speaker, Bonnie Petty, advocated for workers' rights for over 20 years. and is currently co-chair of the local chapter of the California Alliance for Retired Persons, focusing on seniors and persons with disabilities. Bonnie will discuss ways we can help protect Social Security. And remember, if you have any questions, write them down on your cards, hold up your card, and Angela and Kay will walk around and pick up the card. Please welcome Bonnie Petty.
Hi everybody, wow, what a great turnout. So it's good to see you all here. So my job in this panel is to talk about what can we do about this. We've heard some nightmare stories, and we keep hearing all of these myths and everything. So I'm here to tell you a few things that you can do and how you can be involved. First thing is to do what you're doing here tonight, and that is to find yourself in places where you're going to get real information and where the lies and the threats and the myths can be debunked, and do your best to find the information and always question the information and make sure you're getting good information. So I applaud you for being here tonight. That's a first step. The other thing, and the next thing I would like to say is that I would like to just give kudos to Indivisible, because Indivisible across this nation, in this country, in this county, in our city, they have been doing phenomenal work with getting the rallies and getting the turnout and just having just masses of people. I'm telling you, people in the street, this works. The pushback is working, and it's got people, these people afraid. They know that we're paying attention. They know that we aren't believing them, and they know we're in the streets, and they know we're pissed. So there we go. So keep going out there and keep being on the street. And so one of the things in the packets that are on your desks or on your chairs, where there's these QR codes, and one of them is a QR code so that you can be signed up with Indivisible, and the other QR code is to be signed up with my organization, which is the California Alliance for Retired Americans. Stay involved with these groups, because that's where they'll be telling you what's really going on, where you can go, what you can be doing, and how you can be effective in the streets and in our fight against this, because this is a big fight, and it's only one piece of, as we all know, of a huge, huge effort to undermine everything that we all cherish about this country. So CARA, the reason that I was asked to be here is because CARA, the California Alliance for Retired Americans, is a statewide organization that represents over 1 million seniors and persons with disabilities. We have over 300 affiliated groups through which we work across the state, and our focus is on educating and informing our members, the public, and our elected officials about the issues that matter to senior citizens. This organization, this chapter in Sonoma County, started in 2017, but CARA statewide, we're in our 21st year, and we have been fighting for Social Security every day that we have existed. Because even though we're a statewide organization and Social Security is a national issue, it affects everything. It affects, as it was talked about earlier, if you cut off this money, what happens to the local economy when seniors have no money to spend? I mean, and the homelessness situation, it just balloons into, it's just a disaster.
We all become bank robbers.
We'd all become bank robbers, that's right. Beside the bank robbers who are bank robbing our whole country right now. So, but we have been doing this for 20 years, and you have to remember, this year, yes, Social Security turns 90 this year, and from day one, there has been efforts to undermine and undo Social Security. From the very first day it was signed into law, there has been efforts to privatize it, get rid of it, and so we have been fighting for 21 years in the state to do whatever we could to protect it at this level. Most of what CARA does, Indivisible has these great things where they do these rallies and stuff. A lot of what CARA does is we work with our legislators. We focus on statewide issues, and we work with a lot of our state politicians. We sponsor a lot of bills. We have a very tiny staff, and so our whole organization is very much volunteer run. We have a huge legislative committee that spends all of its time doing deep dives into like dozens and dozens of policy issues and legislation that comes through the state, and we decide whether we're going to oppose it or support it. And then we do things like, we do have rallies, and we do have rallies in support of or against particular legislation or policies. We get people to go to the state, and we testify in the hearings. And then we do kind of things like where we get 700 senior citizens and we put them on buses across the whole state, and we go down to Bakersfield and show up at Kevin McCarthy's office to tell him to leave his damn hands off of our Social Security. Well, Kevin McCarthy at that time was so, you know, he was such our friend. So when 700 seniors showed up at his office with walkers and canes and their signs, do you know what they did? They pulled all the drapes, they locked the doors, they told them they could not come in, and they called the cops, and they called the FBI, and they called the Secret Service to tell them to take these people away. So, it works when you are in the street. So that's what I would tell you, is to keep doing that. So the other thing, so right now there's a couple of things that we're doing, and like I said, we are a statewide organization, but we work with our national organization, which is the Alliance for Retired Americans, and Social Security Works. So we have a lot of groups that we work with nationally that we are always working on these issues with. And then statewide, there's such a confluence of what happens with the national level and at the state level. And so right now, we have two particular things that we're working on. One is that we are having every Wednesday, we are sponsoring phone banks, and we're phone banking senior citizens in Valadeo's district, which is in Southern California. I think it's McCarthy's old seat, if I could have that wrong. But in his district, he has 62% of the population there is on Medicaid. And he voted for that budget. And he's now saying, oh, I didn't mean that, and I don't want Medicaid to go away, and I don't want Social Security to go away. So, but then when he actually shows up and votes, you know, there he is. So what we're doing is we're having a massive phone banking, calling into Valadeo's district. We're talking to seniors in his district, and we're asking them to call Valadeo's office and saying, hands off my Medicaid, my Social Security, and Medicare. Leave it alone, or we're going to vote you out. So now, and I do have to say that CARA is nonpartisan and we're a nonpartisan nonprofit, but we aren't stupid. So, we hold candidates nights, and we invite both candidates, and we have them talk about issues for seniors and all kinds of things statewide and nationally. And the amazing thing is that sometimes the Republicans don't show up. I don't know why that would be, but sometimes they don't. So anyway, but we work on it, and we still work with them. We always invite them to come. We always want to talk to them. We always want them to come face to face with their constituents, and we offer as many opportunities to do that as we can. So we're doing the Valadeo phone bankings, and in your packet, I put a thing on it says the California Alliance. There's some codes on there. There's one QR code is just about our organization and talks about our local, like we have 18 local chapters across the state. We have one here in Sonoma County and one in Marin. So there's a QR code to find out more about that. There's a QR code that you have to ignore because it was about our lobby day, and that's already passed. but in the bottom corner there is a QR code where you can sign up to take part in that phone banking effort. So if you're interested in that. The other thing that we're doing is, so you guys have this petition, and that's a great idea. Sign that petition, take it out, have other people sign it, send it to your representatives. But what Cara is doing is we have taken that a step further, and we went to the state legislature and talked to some of our representatives, and we finally got Pilar Schiavo, probably a name many of you might know. She's a dear, we love her. She works with us a lot. So she is carrying a bill, it's called AJR 3. And AJR 3 is an Assembly joint resolution that it does not require the governor's signature. It's a resolution for the Assembly to pass and then the state to pass. And what that basically does is what that petition does, is it tells our California delegation that's going to Washington, do not vote for any cuts to any of these programs. Do not approve any cuts, and if anything, vote for improvements. Vote for that, getting rid of that cap. Thank you. And that's, so that's what it says. And I'll just kind of read you the summary of what AJR 3.
What is her name again? Your sponsor?
Pilar Schiavo. And on the back side of that same sheet, it said there's our 2025 priority legislation. These are our 3 priority bills this year. The middle one is the AJR 3, so there's more information there about that. But I'm going to read you the summary of this. The joint resolution will send a strong message to congressional leadership, California's congressional delegation, and the White House that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are foundational to our communities, and that any cuts to these programs will only create irreparable harm. So it says AJR 3 will affirm that Social Security, Medicare, and the Medicaid systems give expression to widely held California values, including caring for our families, our neighbors, and ourselves, personal responsibility, hard work, and personal dignity. It sends a strong message to the congressional leadership and the White House that these programs cannot be cut. So that's what the AJR 3 does. And so what we would ask you to do is to be calling your assembly members and calling our Senator McGuire, and tell them that we want them to sign on as co-sponsors, and if nothing else, at least vote positively when those bills come to their floor, to the Assembly or to the Senate. So that's those 2 things. So those are what we're working on, but I just want to bring to your attention some other things. So you have the information, these little cards. Those of you who are on Social Security and are going through some of those problems that you're having, there's Attorney General Bonta has set up a website, a place for you to go on and report those problems. I think some of you might know that this has been happening in other states, where governors and attorney generals are collecting this information. Representative Congressman Huffman has his site. Do that, follow up with that. That's another part of the action that you need to take. There's a rally on May 5th, I think maybe it might have been mentioned earlier, at the Social Security office in support of the staffers that work there.
The flyers are in the packets.
It's in the packet, so there's a flyer in your packet. So May 5th at noon in front of the Social Security office in support of those workers. Go out there and let them know that you're behind them and that you want them to continue to have a job. So that's important. This other piece that's in here, this Take Action Your Way, I really, really, really encourage you. This was a great thing that Indivisible put together. A lot of things that you can do on this at whatever level works for you. So we have sign up with Indivisible, sign up with Cara, sign up to help us call seniors in Valadeo's district, call your assembly and the senators on AJR 3, sign the petition that's been going around, attend the rally, and use that flyer, find your way. And I want to encourage all of you to understand something. We all are feeling extremely overwhelmed right now. I mean, it's just coming at us, it's just a barrage of assault and everything else. And one of the things that's working is because in response, it's been a barrage of rallies and a barrage of saying no and a barrage of stop. And in some ways, I think that's really great. But in some ways, it's also, you can look at all these ways of things you can do, and some of us who are really active, we just keep doing more and more and more, and then you sort of get wore out. So I just want to warn you and tell you, this is a long haul process. This is going to be a long fight, and we've got a lot of fights ahead of us. And I would urge you to look at all those different ways and use those as ways of taking care of yourself. Being there where you can and understanding that sometimes you can't be there and that's okay. Pace yourself, because we're in this for the long haul. And I urge you, we cannot let this ebb. We have to be out there. And so pace yourself, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the streets.
Thank you, Bonnie Petty. We still have a little bit more to go, but I wanted to take a second because I really wanted to thank our speakers for letting us know the compassionate history of the origins of Social Security. That's who we are as a people. Gonna cry, not gonna cry. And that we really can work to help secure our own future. That's what a democracy is. And these amazing people have really inspired me tonight. And thank you. Okay, we are going to have a very brief statement from Representative Mike Thompson's office. Sergio is going to come up and read a brief statement. After that, we're going to have a Q&A.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sergio Toscano. I'm the field rep for Congressman Thompson here at the Santa Rosa office. So I just wanted to read a brief message for you guys. Dear friends, I wish I could be here with you today, but work has me in DC for legislative business. Thank you to Indivisible for organizing today's meeting. For 90 years, Social Security has been a promise to our country's workers to allow them to retire for decades of hard work. But this administration has been working to demonize, downsize, and privatize Social Security. Social Security isn't a handout. You paid into it. You're entitled to it. But this administration is trying to make it harder for you to access the benefits you are owed. That's why they fired 7,000 Social Security workers, closed 47 field offices and 6 regional offices across this country, and are trying to change the rules to prevent Americans from being able to register for benefits over the phone. We won't stand for it. Despite the president's best efforts, Social Security is not going anywhere. It's not failing, and it's not on life support. Our FACT campaign is working. Keep raising your voices and get your friends, family, and community involved. Back in Washington, I will keep fighting for the president's dangerous agenda in Congress, in the courts, and in the court of public opinion. Thank you again for coming out and making your voices heard to this out-of-control administration.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I have some statements to read and some questions. Whoever, there's multiple clipboards, let's bring them back out into the audience, please.
Where are those petitions? The petition.
Here they come. There should be multiple clipboards, let's bring them around.
Pay attention to it when we keep moving.
Okay. So while they're setting up, I have a story to read. So one person wrote, "My master's degree in counseling enabled me to help low-income people over a 40-year work span. Now I'm disabled and retired, and I depend on my only income $1,167 a month. Social Security, that's it. Here in Sonoma County. Without it, I'd become homeless, and with my heart and lung diseases, I'd soon die. Please protect Social Security. Here's Sharon's story. She's 80 and she's a widow. My Social Security is my only income. Without it, I don't know what I will do. I have bills and living expenses as anyone does. I have no way of holding a job. As it is, I barely get by each month. I hope Social Security is not touched by the government. Many elderly people count on it just as I do. Taking away Social Security is stealing from the elderly. Okay. I have a question, but I don't understand it, so I'm hoping that the person who wrote it can help. Who qualifies for the SSA paybacks and when?
I understood that some people have gotten payback or back pay money that this is what I don't understand, what it exactly is. But some people I know have received.
Are you a retired teacher? Are you a teacher?
Yes, and teachers not against social security.
Okay. Okay, you're asking about people who got back pay from Social Security recently, right?
Yeah, I just wondered who gets it.
I think what you're probably talking about is a brand new change in the law, which frankly most of us don't fully understand yet, but it's called something like the Social Security Fairness Act or something. There were the two, exactly, yes. The two most complicated parts of Social Security historically have been the government pension offset for GPO and WEP. I'm seeing a lot of people nodding. I bet you're retired teachers, right?
Yes.
These were parts of the Social Security Code that said if you were already getting a government pension, as public school teachers usually do, you didn't used to qualify for Social Security in addition, and your spouse didn't either. There's been a very recent change in the law that's not fully implemented yet that says you're going to get Social Security after all. And so some people are getting back pay because of that. It is fairly complicated, and I'm afraid my best suggestion is you contact the Social Security office and make an appointment, even though we know how hard that is. Another possibility is be patient. It's still rolling out. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot clearer in a month or two.
Well, I don't think I qualify.
Okay.
I just wanted to understand it.
If you qualify for a minimum Social Security payment with, 40 quarters of work or whatever it takes to qualify, or your spouse received Social Security or was qualified to receive Social Security, you should get a check. My sister was a teacher for many, many years. She got $36,000 in back pay. I know other people that got $40,000 in back pay and ongoing monthly checks of $3,000 or more. So just depends on if you had, or your spouse, had paid in enough to meet the minimum requirement to get benefits.
But would have to have been a teacher.
Or other people who got government pensions.
Some other kind of
Like
pension.
I retired from the library here, and I was one.
County.
I didn't hear that.
I said I.
It's heavy.
So I retired from this library system where we are right now. I spent 10 years in this library system, and I retired from this system. I'm someone who got hit really hard with the web. Because what happened is like, I spent 50 plus years of my life working, and I only spent 10 years here as a public employee. For those 10 years, I had a pension, but I was one of the lowest paid people because I was just a clerk. I wasn't a librarian, and I only worked for 10 years, so I had a really tiny pension. And all of the other 40 years I worked, most of them were low income jobs. So, but I did make enough credits to get Social Security. So what they did was they said, well, so because you have a pension, so Ronald Reagan, this was his plan, because he said that you guys are double dipping. If you're getting a pension from the state, then you can't have this, you can't collect all your Social Security. Well, that would be like if you worked for company A, B, and C, and company X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z said, well, you're getting money from them, so we're not going to give you half of your money. And And so that's what they did. So I worked for, so I spent 20% of my working life, 10 years here, 20%, and they took 62% of my Social Security away from me. They took over $700 out of my Social Security, and I ended up with $600.
But we're here to tell you, it's good news.
But it's fixed.
Biden undid this.
Biden undid this. Yes,
Can we go on to the next thing? Or?
And Reagan was a quadruple dipper. He got a Screen Actors Guild pension, he got a state of California pension from governor, he got a federal pension from being president, and he got Social Security as well. And then he cut off everybody else.
Thank you, Mr.
Anywho, so is Social Security emailing people and asking them to verify their information? So this is a scam. If anybody emails you or texts you or calls you asking for your Social Security number, hang up, or if you want to have fun, start singing happy birthday.
Or give them a fake number.
You might accidentally give somebody else's real number. Let's not do that. No fake numbers, please. Okay, here's the next one. I understand that Social Security is not a Ponzi scheme. However, is it not true that the government has borrowed heavily from the SSI fund, in practicality bankrupting the fund? Is this true?
Not SSI.
Or any Social Security fund? There's
I think they do borrow money from the trust fund, but they have to pay it back.
But they will pay it back.
I think they do.
That's not our problem.
But didn't they?
The money belongs to us, it's not our problem, who moves money where, doesn't matter.
And I think that about 20 years ago, didn't they pass a legislation where they were very limited on what they could take out and how much they could access?
Doesn't matter.
But they're not supposed to.
okay. Is it possible to receive Social Security and live in another country? Okay, somebody's trying to run away. Would we have to come check in or complete forms?
If you've earned it, it doesn't really matter where you live. And you probably do have to complete forms, but you can do them by mail, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
Well, so far.
Are you doing so far?
Okay. Sorry, I'm just going through these pages.
They're all too easy, right?
Somebody wanted to point out that the last paragraph of the terms of service to enter your Social Security account online, you have to agree that the SSA is not responsible for the improper disclosure of any information. That's not true. Can you speak to that, please, Charlie?
Well, if there is improper disclosure, whoever, I mean, the computer system improperly disclosed, I mean, they're liable. I mean,
No, they want you to agree.
If the Social Security system wrongfully releases information that they got from you, personally identifiable information, they are liable for that. Any employee that happens to, if I get information from a claimant in an interview and I disclose that to anybody.
No, Charlie. This is the terms of service. When you're signing up for myssa.gov, you have to agree to the terms of service. And it says, I agree that the SSA is not responsible for the improper disclosure of any information that the Social Security Administration has provided to me or any information that is on my computer, whether due to my negligence or the wrongful acts of others. So the question is has this language always been there, or is this new? This woman is saying that this is new information. So this is for somebody to research out there and figure this out, because this is more about stealing our data and all sorts of bad things.
I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that would be legally binding. I think if they disclosed and there was harm, you could sue the government.
Are we ready to do that right
Okay,
now?
all right. So that leads into the next question, is why are there so many issues online? Can't quite read this. I think the person is asking, can you collect your Social Security and not be online?
Yes.
I didn't ask that, but that was my question as well, because I don't always trust online now, so.
what they've done over the years is they've moved Social Security offices away from city centers where they have public transportation, where there's parking, where you can go, and they've moved them out to remote areas that's difficult to get to, where there's no public transportation, on the premise that everybody's gonna be going online and, or calling. And then just recently, they said, well, we're not gonna accept any phone calls, right? Because of fraud, although they've never proven any fraud from phone calls. And now, and so people are coming into the offices in droves, and so it just, there's no consistency.
They're not gonna send checks by mail according to, what's his name, Mike?
Well, if you don't have a bank account, I mean, there are people that do not have a bank account.
They send you a debit card.
But I'm just saying, they've already said, the guy who said his mother is 90 did you notice?
Oh, yeah. I pity her. Thanks, son.
Okay, so here's another one that I'm having a little trouble understanding. Social Security is set up so that we receive our checks based on our birthday and how much we pay into our paychecks. So checks can arrive at different points, such as on the 9th of the month. In other words, 8 days after rent is due. Is this system going to continue whether or not? So can you guys please respond to that?
It depends on your birthday. If your birthday is the first part of the month, you get your check on the second Wednesday.
Yeah.
Can you say in your
Basically, they always used to come on the 3rd of the month. And then because it was the difficulty of issuing so many checks all going the same day, that they started to stagger the payments.
Yeah.
And do you know what those payment days are?
Yes, it depends on where your birthday falls in the month. My birthday is the 23rd of the month, it's the end of the month, so my check comes on the 4th Wednesday. My friend's birthday is the 14th of the month, her check comes on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, and the people whose birthdays are the first part of the month comes on the 2nd Wednesday of the month. It's always Wednesday, it's either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th Wednesday of the month.
And they always pay you a month late.
Yes, it's always in arrears.
Okay. So the next question is, why do they allow anyone to touch our funds like a bank account?
Yeah. Right.
Do the panelists understand the question? Can you?
Yeah, it refers to what we were talking about before, that I've been hearing all my life, that the government goes in and takes all this money out of that fund. Why should they even be able to touch it? It's not their money.
I think, are you talking about the trust fund that the Social Security monies are in?
Yeah, I've heard my entire life that the government dips into that money, which puts everyone at risk, because the government is mismanaged.
Okay, is that true, Charlie?
I understand that it's an IOU and that they pay it back. For example, of the benefits that were paid last year, the federal government threw in an additional $1 trillion out of tax money to make sure that all the benefits were covered.
I guess a different way of asking is that, has there ever been a time when it's been short?
No. Never. And it's not our problem. If they're not funding it properly, they still owe us the money. So I wouldn't fret about who's moving what where.
I know, but look what they're doing to the system right now. They're completely sabotaging it. So what's the next step? Oops, we don't know where your money is? What's the next step?
So one thing to remember is that there's the trust fund, which is where your money goes, the money that they take out of your check, and the money that the other people pay in. The money that pays for the buildings and for the staff and the running of it, that is not trust fund money. So that's why they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to undermine it, and what they're doing is they're cutting off general fund money that, that pays. It's like they tried to sell off 100 and something government buildings and stuff. So they were going to sell off all of the Social Security buildings. So that's not part of the trust fund.
But they're still sabotaging.
they still are sabotaging. I mean, the whole point is to undermine it so that everybody goes, well, see, it's going broke and I'm not gonna have it anyway. And so that you'll just give up and so that you won't fight to save it. The whole point is to make you believe that it's a Ponzi scheme and it's going broke and it's not gonna be there. And we just have to, I mean, the way to deal with that is do this, is understand. That's
And
just
understand the
BS.
facts, and hear the facts, and not get sucked into the rumors and the myths.
Yeah, you can ask your congressman exactly that question about, how is the trust fund protected? To what extent does the government access that money for whatever purpose, and how is it paid back? I mean, they're the people that vote on this stuff, so they're in the best position to know.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one. This is about marital benefits. In a straight married couple, or actually in a married couple, if one spouse dies, the survivor can choose to receive their own Social Security or the deceased.
No, incorrect. You don't choose. You don't choose. You get the highest benefit available to you. It's not your choice. So if your spouse died and they were earning more than, or their Social Security was more than your benefit, you get that survivor amount.
Okay. Does this also apply to domestic partnership?
No, it does not. Social Security is a federal program. There is no federal marital status called domestic partnership. So that's why we needed marriage equality and other things like that, because marriage is marriage for Social Security purposes. And also, there's no common law marriage in California. So don't say, oh, everybody thinks we're married, we might as well. You gotta get it done if you want spousal benefits.
But some states, I remember certifying some marriages where they jumped over a broomstick, like.
Other states.
Yeah, like Tennessee or Louisiana or something, and, that was a legal marriage in that state.
But not in California.
Yeah.
You gotta get married.
Okay, that's.
Maybe a vacuum cleaner in California.
Thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you, Heather Liston, Tara Estudio, and Bonnie Petty. And also thanks again to Allison Page. Okay, don't go away. Hang on. So tonight we talked a little bit about Social Security and what we can do to fight it, and to help protect it, okay? I hope folks are encouraged to continue to fight, and for in whatever way makes sense for you. Some people are not marchers, that's okay. Maybe you're a letter writer, great. Maybe give people rides someplace. Maybe you're just kind to yourself and you're kind to your neighbors. This is all activism, okay? We can't give up. I'm not gonna give up. I hope you don't give up. Let's not give each other up. Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you so much for coming.
This Monday, from the Social Security office, 12 to 1, I'll be there.